there's enough business for everyone. Though I could give them, what's worked for me, people come to me not only for my aesthetic and for my design, but they also come because they specifically want to work with me and my team.
Correct.
And now we've built our business to a point where we can pick and choose the projects that we want to work on. So we really make sure it's a good aesthetic match, a good personality match, budget is in line with the goals, all that stuff.
Welcome back to the Struggle and Strive podcast. I'm your host, Estel Wallace. As we delve further and further into entrepreneurship and wealth building and hustle and grind and all that stuff, I've got a very special guest with me today. Her name is Jessica Hartman. She is the founder, co-founder, CEO of Hartman Haus. It's a design and consulting firm located here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I couldn't be more excited to have you on here today. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honestly honored, so thank you.
Epic. So, first of all, before we even get into it, how do people find you? If anybody wants to double screen this while they're watching, how would we find your work?
A couple different ways. I'd say most people find me on social media. So on my Instagram page, which is at Hartman_HAUS, so Haus spelled the German way. Also, we have a website, so hartmanhaus.com. But I'd say the majority of people typically find us via Instagram.
Yeah.
So whether it's people just scrolling or potential clients, I'd say that's how we get all of our clientele.
Yeah, so whether you're interested in design or you just like aesthetically pleasing design, you should definitely check out her stuff. It is.
Thank you.
So when did you become interested in design? How old were you?
I think I've just had a love for interiors ever since I was really young. So when I was little, I was an only child until I was about 12 years old. And we moved into a home in Rancho Cucamonga that had 4 bedrooms. So it was my parents.
Is that the IE?
It's the IE, yep, Inland Empire. So my parents had a bedroom and then I had a bedroom. And then the other spaces, they really didn't do anything with it. They would sometimes make a guest bedroom, but we didn't have an office or anything. So for years, I would pop back and forth between the other bedrooms. And before my dad was a firefighter, he used to paint homes professionally. So my dad was constantly painting. And every time I would switch rooms, I would want a new theme for my bedroom. So I would be like, Dad, I want to move to the back bedroom and I want it blue and I want moons and stars, and then I would switch maybe 6 months later and I'd be like, I want the front bedroom and I want it pink and I want like a 50s vibe with Marilyn Monroe and Elvis and all kinds of things. So like I was constantly doing it. I know I gave my parents a huge headache, but it just...
How old would you say you were?
I was 12 years old.
Oh, 12.
12,
Okay.
just about 12.
That's perfect.
Yeah, so always had a love for it. And then honestly, like my mom did a really great job of like making our house a home and always keeping things, like she would make things really beautiful and like the holidays were really special. She'd go above and beyond when it came to like decorating. And I always helped her when it came to decorating. And then there would be days where I'd be like, I don't really like the flow of the living room. So I would on my own move the furniture around and they would be like, what did you do? I'd be like, let's just try it for a while. And they would just let me. And so I'd say my love for it started at a really young age. And then as I got older and started, getting our own place, we get an apartment, then it became much more of a passion because it was my own place to make what I wanted.
You drive Hunter crazy moving the furniture around?
I don't think so because if he wasn't around to do it, I would do it on my own. And I even did it. He gets mad to this day because I remember when I was pregnant with Berlin, it was like towards the end of my pregnancy too. I was like 8 months and
slinging couches around.
I was moving the couch by myself just because I was, you go stir crazy when you're pregnant and you're also nesting. So I wanted things perfect. So yeah, one day he was at work and I just decided to move all the living room furniture. He was not happy about that.
So you've always been interested in design ever since you were a kid, moving things around. Did you work in design right out of high school? What did your early career look like?
No, not at all. So I started working when I was 14, just because I wanted to have my own money. My parents raised me much different than they raised my brothers. For me, it was if you want a cell phone, you have to by yourself. If you want a car, you're going to be paying for your gas and you're going to be paying for your insurance. So anything that I wanted, it was like, then you need to make your own money and you need to pay for it. So I started working at 14 and I was a cheer and gymnastics coach and I was just paid under the table.
That's a great high school job, actually.
It is a great job being a coach, whether it's for a sport or like working with the church or something like that. So I volunteered at my church and then I was working and they were just paying me under the table to coach little kids.
That's fantastic. What other kind of stuff did you do before you, like leading up to getting into design? What sort of stuff did you do?
I had so many jobs. So it's like a family joke because I was constantly changing jobs when I was young, but I feel like, that's how you learn what you like to do. So when I was young, it was cheer and gymnastics coach. I worked, my first like real job was for Starbucks and I worked for them for about 4.5 years.
Wow.
And
Did you smell like rank coffee all the time?
Not even rank coffee, but when you make whipped cream and you get it on your apron. So this was back in the day when you had to be in uniform. Like they were very strict. Not like now. They can wear whatever they want now. They don't wear aprons. It's more like come as you are now. You could show your tattoos, your piercings. Back then, it was very like you had to be in uniform. You had to wear a green apron. You would get heavy cream on you and you would just smell so sour. Like I smelled so sour and you can never get the coffee smell out of your hair. You'd smell like it all day long. But I loved working for Starbucks. Sometimes I really miss like being a barista. I just like go to a Starbucks and I want to jump behind the bar and make drinks again because like the rush of like
it's fast paced.
It's fast paced and I like love that like, I've got 15 drinks on the bar and I've got to like make them as fast as I can. I was like so in the zone, loved it. But yeah, I worked as a barista for like a couple of months, quickly got promoted to supervisor. So I was like 17, 18 when I was doing that. And then I worked in retail. I worked for like Abercrombie and Fitch. I worked for a surf shop. I worked I'd say I was in the hospitality industry majority of my career prior to starting interior design. So worked for a lot of restaurants as a server, as a bartender, and worked in property management also a little bit.
How much of your experience in hospitality, being in those larger scale architected professionally designed environments, do you think that had an influence on, not necessarily positive or negative, but I mean, were you just hyper aware of the way things were designed in those environments?
I don't think so. Really early on. I think now when I go into a restaurant, obviously I'm really I'm picking it apart. I'm looking at like all of the fine little details and like what I would do differently. Hunter and I love to go to like, whether it's a little coffee shop or, a bakery or something like, cause we're just like, oh man, what would we do if we opened a spot like this? We would kill it with the design and, just make it super efficient, but really beautiful. No, when I was young, I was working at like Yard House, TGI Fridays. I did work for Tommy Bahama's. That was probably one of the nicer restaurants that I worked for. But like most of my restaurants that I worked for, they weren't like aesthetically pleasing.
No, Yard House is just,
it's just a bar.
It's yeah.
But I make great money.
Yeah, I bet. They turn a lot of tables there. That's a place that we've gone to over the years just because our kids can be loud and nobody cares.
Yeah, it's great. And honestly, so I went to college right out of high school and I went to California State University of San Bernardino and originally wanted to be a nurse. So my dad, when I was young, was diagnosed with leukemia. And throughout my high school years, he was in the hospital a lot. So I would see like how the nurses were with him and it just like really made me just admire them and appreciate their work. So I decided, oh, maybe I want to be a nurse because I didn't really know what I wanted to be coming out of high school. Started taking nursing courses and was like, absolutely not. Like I am so out of my realm. Like I'm just not this smart. I'm just not. I'm an average 3.3 grade point average student, very just I wasn't going above and beyond, whereas my brother, he's like super smart. And I just didn't feel comfortable. And I was like, maybe I'll be a teacher. I was like, I love working with kids. I love coaching. And I could see myself doing that. Started doing the courses for it. And then at the time, it would have been like, 2007, 2008. A lot of my friends who were teaching were getting pink slipped. Let go from their teaching jobs. And I was bartending at the time and I was making a lot more money than they were making in their career. And I was like, I'm going to leave my bartending job, which I work very minimal hours. I'm not killing myself, to go to a career where all my friends are getting fired and they're making less money than me. And then at that point, I was like, I don't want to go to school anymore. And I dropped out in my 4th year.
Wow.
My parents were not happy.
Yeah, I bet. Education is one of those, higher education is one of those, it's a delicate subject. There's a lot of people on the internet, especially now, that really poo-poo college.
Mhm.
And I vibe with that
Same.
because I'm a high school dropout.
hmm
But on the other side of it, there is merit when you have a chosen field
hmm
of expertise that you want to study, and medicine, engineering, things
Sure.
like that, where you're just not going to get it's very difficult. I'm not saying impossible, but very difficult to get the type of base level knowledge that you would need to enter one of those fields at a high performing level without a formal education.
Yeah,
But
1 million percent.
those are rare.
Mhm.
That's more, I would almost call those almost edge cases.
Yeah.
Whereas like I do agree that the cultural assumption that if you don't know what you want to do with your life, you should go to college
Mhm.
is bad advice.
No, 1 million percent. And I mean, we have a daughter who's about to be 10, and she's been saying since she was, maybe a couple years ago, I don't think I want to go to college. And we're like, don't go. We don't think you should go unless you're going to be a doctor or
Mhm.
something that requires a degree. You don't need to go, because I look at everybody now, a lot of our friends who are entrepreneurs or, people who started their own business, they're just like Hunter and I. We both dropped out of college, and it was just the drive and the determination and, our motivation that really got us to where we are today. So yeah, I feel like our generation was so much different. It was, you went to, right after high school, you went to college.
Yep.
That was just what you did. There was no questions asked, whether it was a community college or a 4-year. It was just what you did. So my parents were really disappointed when I dropped out, and then even more disappointed when my brother kind of fell into the same shoes. He went to University of Irvine, graduated from high school with like a 4.5, and got into a lot of the colleges he applied, also dropped out in his 4th year. But he was going for like criminal justice. And I'm like, you probably should have stayed and you're like, you finished it. But yeah, I'm happy that I'm not the only dropout in the family.
You're definitely not the only dropout in the room.
Yeah.
I didn't even make it to college.
And look at you now.
Technically, I went to Phoenix Community College for 1 semester, failed every class I was in.
Jeez,
So
yeah.
I was just blackout drinking. So
Yeah.
I don't think I don't typically refer to, I have some college. Like
Mhm.
that's an overstep
Yeah.
to say that. I don't really have any college.
Yeah, no.
What was your first professional design project? When was it? What was it?
So
Did you undercharge?
probably. I think when you're first starting out, like, when I was first starting out, we were doing just remote design. So, and
How does that work?
and we still offer it now. I call it a house call.
Okay.
And what it is the client will send us, their photos of the space that they want us to redo, inspiration photos of things that they like, detailed measurements. We get the gist of it. Back then, I think it was a phone call. It could have been a FaceTime, but now we still do FaceTime where we walk the space with them. But, it would be like you were wanting to redo your bedroom. You don't like your bedroom, but, like most people, you don't even know where to begin. What do I do? Here's my budget. I don't want to spend a lot, but I know that I don't like what it is and I need help. So you walk us through the space, you give us the measurements, you send us photos of what you do like. Back then, when I was first starting out, I was just taking any job that I can get.
Sure.
Whereas now we've built our business to a point where we can pick and choose the projects that we want to work on. So we really make sure it's a good aesthetic match, a good personality match, budget is in line with the goals, all that stuff. But my first in-home client is so near and dear to my heart. She's actually rehired us before, was in Phoenix, and it was for a living room. And I look back at the designs now, and Hunter and I are just mortified because
Sure.
we've just come such a long way. I mean, back then, I remember when I was sharing those photos, we were getting so many people that wanted us to help them. But looking back at it now, we did these raw shelves on either side of her fireplace that were not even finished. They were literally just pieces of wood from Home Depot, and then these brackets underneath. So it wasn't even a seamless floating shelf. We put way too much weight, I think, on them on either side. they looked pretty, I feel like, for back then, but it was very like bohemian vibe and kind of more hippie, and like my style was just different. But for that time, it was great. Anyways, she's an amazing client, and she hired us, I want to say, it was last year sometime, to redo the same living room, like to update it. And it was just like an honor and a pleasure, because I was like, I've been wanting to redo this job for you. Full circle moment. But yeah, that was our first in-home client.
And how long ago was that?
We started our business in 2019. So it was, 2019.
All right. So you don't have a bunch of entrepreneurial experience
No.
prior to design. It doesn't sound like the house you grew up in was very entrepreneurial.
No.
How long did you think about it before starting?
A long time. So I started an Instagram page back in 2015, my Instagram page. So before I had Hartman House, I had my personal page, just Hartman. And I was always sharing like our apartment and what I was doing. And I just decided one day I'm going to create a separate page that's just for my home decor. That's separate from like what I'm sharing about my family and, personal life. But I wanted it to grow and be successful. And what I noticed is a lot of my friends that were following me on my personal page weren't coming and following me on my business page, because they were like, well, I already follow her here. I'm not going to go follow her on another account. So then I was like, I'm going to get rid of this personal page, and I'm only going to have Hartman House. And so I would make announcements like, I'm getting rid of this page. If you want to stay in contact with me, please come and follow my new page. And slowly but surely, a lot of those people came over. And
how many people are we talking?
I think my personal page, I probably had like 1,500 followers.
Yeah, because you've got like close to 110,000 followers now.
Yeah, close. Yeah, right around there now. So it was just, like friends, people I went to school with, people I worked with that were following me back then. Started Hartman House, and that was when Instagram was fun, honestly. I felt like it was very just, you grew authentically. There was no algorithm you had to worry about. There was no paid ads. It was just very like fun. So I started following other home decor accounts and other like-minded women who were, married with kids, but either like stay-at-home moms or maybe working part-time. That just, like, for me, I just wanted something that was like mine, and that like fueled me. At the time I was working, Hunter and I were living in Newport Beach. Berlin was probably 2 years old, and he was working as a GM of a restaurant down there in Corona del Mar. So he was gone a lot. I was working maybe 2-3 days at the restaurant at Tommy Bahama's right there, also in CDM.
I've actually eaten there.
It's the bomb.
Many years ago.
I still love it to this day.
Yeah, that's like a little known fact that Tommy Bahama, while I don't care for any of their apparel, their food is markedly good.
Their food is really good. Hunter actually worked for them for about 11 years, went up in the ranks and managed their stores their restaurants, and even opened the location in New York City. But I worked for them as a server for a few years on and off. And so at the time I was only working part-time. So part-time server, full-time mom, and like just a lot of the times bored at home. And we lived in an apartment that was, it was gorgeous because we could see the ocean from our balcony, so that was the perk. But it was very outdated. Popcorn ceilings, carpeted floors throughout, mirrored closets. Literally we didn't have AC or heat, because those apartments that are like right by the ocean, they just didn't.
They just assume you don't need them.
You don't need it. You could open your window or, just very, very, like, just not a vibe, So, but we were paying more for that apartment than we pay for the mortgage on our home now. So
for sure, Newport's not cheap.
No, not cheap. Beautiful, but definitely not cheap. So I started doing small things in the apartment that would upgrade it and make it feel more like home to us. But at the same time, I knew, okay, I want our deposit back, so I can't do anything permanent, that's gonna, alter the apartment or whatever. So I would do small things. I'd have Hunter like change the light fixtures, change this to like a cute IKEA chandelier, instead of just, the boob lights that they call them, or we did washi tape wallpaper. Like, it's literally pieces of tape, made a design, and all it is you put it on the wall, and then when you're ready to take it off, you peel it off. So I'm not damaging the wall when we move out. So I started sharing these little things that were upgrading our rental without damaging the rental so that you can make it feel more like home. And then it just blew up. My Instagram just started growing. People would share my posts, and like big accounts, like, you know, back then, like if you had somebody that had 20,000 followers or 50,000 followers share you would I remember I woke up one time and I had like 2,000 new followers, which was huge within 12 hours, you know, because I played a hashtag. I don't remember what it was at the time, but I played a hashtag and like 10 bigger accounts shared me. Like they were like, the person that we liked this week was Jess Hartman and at Hartman Haus, blah, blah, blah. And slowly but surely, I started getting requests for design. People were like, oh, do you take clients? I'd love for you to come and do my home. And I said no for like 2 years.
Wow.
And because I just didn't, like the thought of designing for somebody else or decorating for somebody else just wasn't appealing to me, because I felt like, well, they're going to want me to decorate how they want me to decorate. You know, they're going to say, okay, I like all nautical, so I want like a beach themed room, you know, or I want, you know, shabby chic or whatever it may be. And I wanted to decorate how I like to decorate. So for 2 years, I said no. And then we moved to Phoenix, and I was still getting nonstop inquiries about people asking for design. Still working at the restaurant. I transferred to the Tommy Bahama here in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
And Hunter was like, okay, why aren't you like, maybe you should start looking into this more. You're still getting constantly asked for it. Your Instagram's growing even more. Maybe this is something we should, you know, consider. So then it literally took me 2 years before I made the jump.
And then what was the jump like?
I am the kind of person that, like, if I'm going to do it, I really want to do it right. So I was like, okay, I want a website. You know, I want to figure out what kind of services I'm going to offer, what I'm going to charge.
So you productized.
Yep. So I reached out to, at that point, I had already had my Instagram for a couple years, and I had a lot of friends who were already interior designers, some formally trained, some not. So I actually called a lot of them and picked their brain of like,
Smart.
what are you charging? What is, you know, what advice would you give me? What should I avoid? What do you encourage? Like stuff like that. And I got a lot of great advice from friends that were designers in San Diego, Orange County, local. And so I based pricing contracts off of like the advice that they had given me. But I knew that I wanted website, services, contract in place, all that kind of stuff.
I think that's really, I want to pause on what you just said because it's so important. And I believe many people that are curious about starting a business or getting into business, I don't think they understand how simple, maybe not easy, but simple it is to reach out to, you know, air quote competitors who will be so kind and generous with their time, with their knowledge, with what seemed to me, in my experience, because my experience was similar, reaching out to other people in the various spaces that I've worked in as part of research. And I was very surprised with how warm the welcome was.
Yeah.
How generous they were with their time, with their information. I would, you know, research a subject, a space that I want to get into, and then start reaching out to anybody I could find, and just appalled almost at how freely they would give me information.
Yeah, people are very forthright. I've been asked so many times, like, how did you start your business? How did you? And I'm always very open and honest about it. But I think that is totally true as people nowadays. I mean, I didn't have Chat GPT back then, you know, where I could say, what's it going to be like to start an interior design business? Give me a business plan. I couldn't do that back then. So back then it was, you know, I knew that I wanted expert advice from people who were doing the work. So.
And you didn't have to pay for coaching?
No, not at all.
No, you were able to just ask around and talk to people.
Yeah, these were friends. And even some of them were friends that I had never met in person, just via social media. We were just friends on social media. And
so good.
Yeah, and they were just very open and honest. And like, I still talk to them to this day. But yeah, now when people ask me, I give them, you know, the ins, the outs, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it.
And to stay on that subject, you don't feel like that's creating competitors when you do it for others.
No, not at all. I just feel like there's so much business. There's enough business for everyone. And I feel like not everyone is me, So I feel like, though I could give them, what's worked for me, I feel like people come to me not only for my aesthetic and for my design, but they also come because they specifically want to work with me and my team.
Correct.
And, no matter how much advice I give out there, like nobody's going to replicate that.
Yeah. Also, the person you're giving advice to, I mean, you'd almost have to look at it negatively. You'd almost have to assume that every person you ever give a free piece of advice to is going to be able to execute
Mm-hmm.
anywhere at the level you can.
Yeah. And I've just never had that mindset of like, well, I can't give them my secret because then they're going to, it's the same
Steal
thing.
my business.
It's the same thing with like, sharing my outfits and, sharing, where I buy stuff. I'm constantly linking things on my Instagram. I'm never going to, gatekeep anything from anyone. I want everyone to like, I don't get mad when people are out there, wearing the boots that I buy or wearing, I want everyone to know.
100%. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people ask me how to start a treatment center in a
Oh,
year.
yeah.
And I'm happy to share, a cup of coffee or a breakfast with anyone and answer high-level questions.
Yeah, same.
There's very little I wouldn't share.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably share 95%.
Yeah.
I'd probably share 90. There's only a handful of things I would keep close.
Yeah.
But there's most of the stuff that would take you years to figure out, I'd be happy to share over coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because, like you already said it, like there's so much work out there. There's always a big need. People don't do it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So we've all got different approaches to the space. And at the end of the day, those people would have to actually execute in a meaningful way for them to even be like, gosh, I have, like, I'm sure in your business, I've got what you would think are competitors, rivals in our space where I'm very close with leadership, management, or ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Very close.
Yeah.
And we share information with each other all the time to help support each other's businesses.
See, I love that. Yeah. I definitely come from a place where it's like community over competition. For
100%.
Sure.
It's an abundance mindset rather than a scarcity. It's really healthy and that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. What's it been like working with your husband, working with Hunter?
We were joking about this earlier this morning. I was like, what should I say? Should I just say it's like heaven on earth? It is. So for the longest time, he was working his full-time job before he came on with us and just killing himself working, 50, 60-hour work weeks. And
Hunter, just to be clear, Hunter is a G.
He is a G.
He is a man's man. He is a hard worker. He is smart. He is capable. I got nothing but affection for your husband. He is awesome.
He's, and same. I mean, his dad was a landscape architect and Hunter just has, I just feel like he's just like a self-starter and like he's the kind of person that can pick up anything. He can literally watch a YouTube video, like maybe even pieces of it and be like, okay, and teach himself that skill and then perfect that skill over time. And like that's something that I love about him is that he's a perfectionist. So a lot of times for our jobs, we can hire things out. We can hire a trade for it, but he'll be like, I'll do it because he knows that he's going to do it 10 times better.
Right.
And, a lot of our clients have grown to love that about him. So they're like, oh, can we just have Hunter do it? But in the beginning, he was working, 50, 60 hours a week at his full-time job, which he was a general manager of a restaurant at the time, and was also working like 30 hours a week with us, whether it was building a feature wall or doing a color block or, putting in light fixtures, whatever it may be. And it got to the point where we needed to either scale we weren't going to be able to grow anymore, or it was like, okay, if we're going to continue to try to take on more volume, then you need to come on with us full time. And it was the same thing. Like we thought about it for like 2 years, prayed about it, give us a sign, God, and I felt like God kept opening doors, but we were really nervous just because we had Berlin. We had great health insurance benefits, things that you just don't want to let go of, the security blanket. Before you want to take that plunge. So yeah, I think he came on with us in 2022, 21. He's telling me 2021, full time. And working with your spouse is interesting. I think for the most part, I'd say there's times that you love it, and then there's times where it's just super annoying. But I think,
I'm
honestly,
laughing. I've done it also.
yeah,
I do it.
I'd say honestly, we don't really work together though. So
Yeah.
I think that's the saving grace is that I'm more on the design side of things, whereas he's, boots on the ground. Like he's the one that's like meeting with the clients for site visits. He's the one doing the measurements. He's project managing. He's managing the trades. So he's more like, doing all the grunt work, and I get to do the pretty details. Me and the team, I'm working with the team on like the actual designs and the sourcing and that stuff. So it's really only when we need to like marry the two and we all need to be there that we're actually working together. So for the most part, I mean, I love it. I love being able to have his input on things. I love being able to, share my frustrations, share the burden, the stress, nobody really knows what it's like owning a business. You're the one that's in it. So when your spouse is also in it with you, I think it's good and bad. You can share that stress and that burden and like the victories and all these great things. But then also you have to pull yourself out of business. Sometimes, when you're on date night, you don't want to be talking about business, So
I'm laughing also because we do that sometimes.
yeah.
Like, on date night, we'll be talking about work.
Yeah, you're like, and you got to be like, okay, wait, can we drop this and like let's actually like reset and go back to, being on a date and not talk about the kids and not talk about work. So, but I'd say honestly, like I actually love having him be with the business because I'm not going to trust anybody. Like I'm going to trust my husband, and it's the same how our clients feel. Like, you've worked with Hunter, so you can, he's great, and my team loves him, and we just trust and depend on him so much. So it's great having him.
Yeah, Danny, you may want to get shots, some panning shots for this episode from the office. Hunter and Jess designed this office. For sure. You and Kelly designed this space. Oh yeah. But the rest of this office they designed.
Don't judge too hard.
Actually, the better project would be your house, but I don't know if you want to share that.
No, we absolutely can.
Yeah.
That was how we found you.
Yeah.
Nicole is, I'll use the words, minorly obsessed with design.
Yeah.
She likes it a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's any more than a hobby for her at our current stage, although her experience with you and Hunter and with the project that we recently completed last year, she has a much stronger interest, not only in the design element, but in the entire development and construction part of that type of project. So we'll see what happens the next year or two, but we have regular discussions about opening a small firm.
Yeah.
That wouldn't necessarily specialize in design. It would be a new home. It would be a custom or semi-custom home construction.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. In which case she'll be calling you, and the four of us will be working together.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So that's a topic that comes up. So yes, Hunter and Jess did our house, our home, our family home, and it is gorgeous.
It's stunning.
It's like absolutely beautiful.
I don't stop sharing it. It's one of our flagship projects. That is just we probably get more compliments on that job than any other job that we've done. I'd say your home, which we call our Highland Hacienda project, and our Nashville project are probably the two projects that I get either asked about the most or complimented about the most. So it was an honor.
I'm trying to remember when Nicole found you. I guess it was springtime last year, about a year ago almost.
Probably would have reached out in April, but she could have found us before then.
She followed you for a while before she reached out.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because she like so many people, she likes all your stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd love to shift gears and pop the hood a little bit and talk about really, I mean, I think it's good conversation, and I think it would be good for anybody who's looking at entrepreneurship, starting a business, getting into business, etc. Let's talk about some of the hard stuff. So many people don't appreciate how difficult it can be, taking the infinite world of details
Yep.
and possibilities and narrowing it into something that fits both form and function
Mm-hmm.
for the value that you're providing.
Mm-hmm.
And they see success like yours in hunters and they go, oh, must be nice.
Yeah.
You want to fill us in on some of the more difficult parts of it that make the sweet parts so sweet?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, we're not, I'd say, like, because it's not just us that are doing it, there's so many other hands that are involved. Like, that's a big part that's really difficult that people don't realize is, like, a lot of times we're not waiting on us, or things aren't determined by us, but maybe it's determined by a contractor or the client, or, and
Or long lead times on
oh,
product.
1,000,000%. So coming out of COVID,
Ugh,
I'd say the majority of our clients want a quick turnaround, especially
it's everyone.
we've done a lot of Airbnbs, and those clients, they want things done in 30 days. They want to see their return quickly. And out of COVID, we were experiencing the longest wait times, or things were getting discontinued or back ordered, and you're having to resource, and then you're dealing with clients that are upset. We don't have control over that. We're not the one that's stocking this product. It's stuck on a ship somewhere. But there's a lot of things that it's not always pretty, and from the construction side of things, or I feel like finances is a big one too. Sometimes you're not going to get, just because you bill a client doesn't mean you're going to get paid right away, or maybe you were excited about a potential project in the beginning, and then you have these things along the way, and it doesn't make the process a fun working process. We've tried really hard to vet projects now, because we want it to be an enjoyable working experience for not only ourselves, for our team, for the client.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you want to not only make sure that it's our aesthetic and the budget's in line, but that it's a good personality match, because you're gonna be stuck with those people. I mean, how long did we work together?
Yeah, months.
A year, maybe.
Yeah, better part of a year.
Yeah, and so you want to make sure that you gel with those people. You're in their home, like a lot. We were in your house every day for months on end. So
Well, our
like,
kids love each other. That helps
I know
too.
our kids do love each other, and I'd say our families do too. So there's problems that you experience along the way as a designer, whether you're having issues with a contractor, with a trade. We've had it where maybe our contractor isn't showing up for weeks and then months, and you can't get a hold of people. People bail on jobs. You're having to find, we've had to chase after, trades before. Maybe it's just not a fun working environment. Finances. There's so many things that people don't really think about that put stress on it. And then especially if you have a team, that adds a whole nother stress factor, because now you have people that are relying on you for pay, and you also want to make sure that you're having the business, so it's constantly, with our business, we are in a luxury business. So anytime that there's been a recession, or like, COVID hit, we were super worried, like, okay, well, we're going to be the first to go. Nobody's going to be wanting to redo their
People
home.
can pull back.
Yeah, and nobody's going to be wanting to redo their home when, we're experiencing a lockdown. People are getting let go from their jobs. And luckily enough, I think people got scared for like a couple weeks, and then people were stuck in their homes, and they were like, well, if I'm going to be stuck here, I want it to look pretty. And so we started getting like
How
a
cool
lot
is
of
that?
a lot of remote jobs, where
Yeah.
people were like, well, I want to redo my bedroom or my living room. But I'd say, it's definitely not this beautiful, like, great, there's a lot of, like, owning any business, I feel like a lot of just difficult aspects of the job that people don't see.
Yeah. Business is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And many people, and I'm speaking for, people that are on the internet that I read their comments, and not necessarily on my stuff, although sometimes on my stuff, but on all kinds of people's content that's out there. And there's amongst many people, there is a general mistrust and marginalization of how difficult these things are.
Mm-hmm.
they just assume that you're rich or
Mhm.
you're advantaged in some way,
Mhm.
or that you know, I don't know what it is they assume, but there's definitely this scoffing mentality
Mhm.
of many people that look at people like you
Mhm.
and say, well, of course she can do it. She's, fill in the blank. Yeah, it must be nice,
Mhm.
whatever. They don't, and they're not giving credit to how difficult it is
Mhm.
to wonder. And I'm speak for myself, not for your business.
Mhm.
Nicole and I have wondered. We've been in business together, gosh, 16 years, something
Mhm.
like that, 14 years, uh, multiple projects. And
Yep.
we have wondered before if we are going to pay our own rent where we live
Mhm.
or if we're going to cover payroll.
Mhm.
That has happened before.
Oh yeah, same.
And that type of stress people don't post that on Instagram
Mm-mm.
generally.
They should.
They should.
I've thought about it. I mean, yeah, sharing the struggle.
I may.
Mhm.
I may in the future, different things.
You should. I remember when you guys told us that this was the first home you've actually owned.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter and I couldn't believe it. We've told friends, we're like, oh my gosh, we're working on this stunning project. Get this, it's their first home they've ever owned.
It's true. I'm
Well,
in my
because
late 40s. First
yeah,
house I've ever bought.
well, this is the first home we've ever owned too. So we were lifelong renters. Honestly, before moving to Arizona, we didn't think we would ever own a home because we were living in Southern California and
Yeah.
we just thought like we're going to rent for life pretty much. Moved here
A lot of people
and
think that.
yeah, moved here and were able to build a home. Moved in 2020, but yeah, this is the first time we've ever actually owned. And it's a small house. Like, when you were saying like must be nice, people think, we're in a 3-bedroom, very small, modest home. And yeah, I remember when you and Nicole told us that, Hunter and I looked at each other like, oh my gosh, it's not impossible. Like we could still Hunter just turned 40. I'm 38. We're like, it's not impossible. We could still get there.
Yeah, no, you guys are younger than us. Gosh, Nicole and I have been together 17 years. I owned my very first business. I almost hesitate to call it a business. It was more of a practice.
Mhm.
It was a consultancy, and I had 3 full-time employees.
Mm-hmm.
And when we met, that was how I earned an income. That was my gig, my project. And we have worked together most of the years since on various projects.
Mm-hmm.
We assumed, I guess, that one of these days something will work big enough, something will speak to us enough, a home, an area
Mm-hmm.
will reach a place in our lives where it feels right
Mm-hmm.
and things line up. And I got to tell you, when I turned 40, that hadn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 years ago, I was sitting in my therapist's office,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of beside myself
Mm-hmm.
with, and this speaks, I think, maybe to career-driven people, also to men as providers. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, almost in literal tears talking to my therapist how I've let my family down.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am, 40 years old. I have no money in savings.
Mm-hmm.
I have no retirement plan. I've just launched yet another startup company because I'm a crazy person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm risking what little capital my wife and I have. I'm talking not much money.
Yeah.
We had her father and my father-in-law like living with us to save on rent.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am starting another company, borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars with interest
Mm-hmm.
to start a company. And I mean, I don't think I cried, but I was just this side of tears talking to my therapist about like, I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a crazy person. Yeah. And then, pre-COVID, 2018, 19, we're driving around Desert Ridge, like the smaller side of Desert Ridge, like Fireside,
Yeah.
where like the houses are cute, but they're really tiny and
Yeah.
the lots are really tiny. Driving around, looking at these houses and thinking, wow, man, maybe one day.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a few years later, yeah, we live in a gorgeous home,
Mm-hmm.
and we own it.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal, but it's not that. Yeah, you could say luck is part of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't rely too heavily on luck. I think if we're speaking to luck, I would say timing
Mm-hmm.
is probably more of the luck-centered factor in succeeding in business, and those things, which are hard to calculate or quantify, they have to get stacked on. That's the icing on top of the cake, which is what you guys have done, which is what we've done, and that's building a career, getting your ass kicked, and
Mm-hmm.
pressing forward anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just been a lot of failure, iteration with moderate success over time, and that has a compound effect. Eventually, you just get better at handling stress, making tough decisions,
Yep.
hiring and firing people,
hmm Yeah, for me,
picking clients.
yeah, I think for me, it's God, 1,000,000%.
I agree totally.
And, you know, I look back at like the trajectory of like our business and like even when I started my Instagram, when I decided to start offering design service, when Hunter came on full time, like all those things, it was constant prayer. Should I do this? If I should, give me a sign, and I was getting for all these things, it was the green light. Like I felt like God was constantly showing us we should do it. And we weren't getting these, because there's been other instances where like, okay, let's pray about it. And we can see these red flags come up. And I'm like, I feel like God's saying no. And if you push it, I feel like you push it. I feel like I've seen where I've gone in my life against God's will. And I've just relied on myself or my own timing because I want it. And those things have ended in disaster. And I'm like, I should have just listened. And when I didn't, it ended in like, either, bad financial situation or stress or heartache or whatever it might be. But with our business, I feel like it's all been God. Like, I feel like God always gives people, these spiritual gifts. And like, I remember there was a sermon, I think it was back when we were living in Orange County, that one of my pastors had given about identifying your spiritual gift. And it was like, if you were to walk into a room and figure out what you can do for someone without getting paid or without getting any type of praise, but you would be able to do with great success, like for that person, that's your spiritual gift. So like, I know for a fact, like my mom is just a great teacher. Like she's my little brother is special needs. He has Down syndrome and she's been homeschooling him since he was like 6. But she's just great at teaching. Like she has the patience for it. Like, so she could literally walk into a room and like, I mean, she's helped with our daughter a lot. So like, I just feel like that's her spiritual gift. I feel like I could walk into a room and go into somebody like with someone and just be like, how can I make this room more beautiful and, make it functional and beautiful and help, feed their soul and also like something that's going to like, what's the word where it like feels like like, so like for me, like I identified my spiritual gift pretty early on. Like when I started this business, I felt like, I like making spaces pretty and I also like talking about it. And like, so now I've kind of married the two.
And you're super good at it.
Thank you.
It's something that people, that's a valuable service you offer to people and people are willing to pay money for it.
Yeah.
Good money.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like it's all been God. Like I look back and when people are like, how did you do it? Like a lot of times I'll tell them like, it's all been God. Like, I feel like, all the glory to him and like the good times and the bad times. But like, Hunter and I, like there's so many times where, like I said, our business, we're in a luxury business. So it ebbs and flows a lot, So there's times where we have a ton of clients and we're like, oh my gosh, like we're juggling so many things and we're going from one project to the next. And we just like don't know how we're going to manage all of it.
Yeah.
And we're like, do we need to hire another designer? Do we need to do, and then there's times where we're like, okay, we just finished out all these jobs. We have no billable hours. What are we going to do? What's the next project going to come? I feel like I am more trusting. I've been a Christian since I would say I got saved on my own when I was around 12, but
Oh, wow. When you were a kiddo.
when I was a kiddo, yeah. But Hunter's a newer Christian. So I feel like a lot of times before he would get a little bit more stressed out, like, what are we going to do? Do I have to go back do I have to start bartending? Should I get a side job? Should I start offering side things, because he would freak out. Like, how are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our employees? And I was just like, I've always done it, but I feel like God's going to provide. Like he's gotten us here. Like I have no doubt that like the jobs will come and like I've consistently just trusted and, prayed and like the jobs have always come. So
this is a great topic because I believe God will move mountains, but we should bring shovels. and simultaneous, like it's both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's being ready to take action, have a plan, however premature it might be, and being ready to execute
Mm-hmm.
while having faith. There's an old AA joke. A sponsor and a sponsee are walking through Manhattan, and they approach a crowd of people that are all looking up,
Mm-hmm.
and they stop. They look up. It's a tightrope between two buildings,
Mm.
and a guy steps out. Everybody goes. Sponsor bumps the sponsee. Hey, you think he can do it? He goes, yeah, I bet he can do it. He goes, that's belief. And then sure enough, he walks one side to the other. Everybody claps.
Mm-hmm.
Then he whips out a wheelbarrow,
Yeah.
puts the front wheel on the rope, bumps the sponsee. Think he can do that? He goes, yeah, I bet he can. He goes, once you climb up there and get in it, that's belief. That's faith.
Mm-hmm.
Belief is conceptualizing, theorizing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Faith is fully trusting
Oh yeah.
in the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to ask myself, in business, sometimes, as we just went through a big growth jump here
Mm-hmm.
at Cornerstone over this last 6 months, and about midway through, about 3 months ago, I had to really talk to God and get honest with myself. Am I willing to just get in the wheelbarrow? We have brought our shovels. Am I willing to get in the wheelbarrow and trust that God's going to move the mountain?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he did.
Yeah. As he does.
And he did.
Yep.
But you know what? That's the difference between sleeping and letting your cortisol levels run your life
Mm-hmm.
during that time. What's the other old joke? When God closes a door, he opens another one.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's downtime in the hallway.
Yep.
You know, what do you do? What do you do in the downtime? Do you drive yourself nuts? Do you backpedal? Do you switch gears? Do you lose heart and go do something else? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer.
Yep.
That's what's even trickier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you've already mentioned, you know, God can show us where we're going to go
Mm-hmm.
and what steps to take. I have a kind of a personal question since you've been so open about your faith. Do you and Hunter pray together
We
ever?
do. Yeah, we do.
That's
and
fantastic.
he's actually just started, you know, wanting to take more of the role of like leader of the household, you know, because I feel like as I say he's a newer Christian, but he's been going to church like since we've been together. So we've also been together 17 years, married for 13. And I've always, since he's known me, I've been a Christian and have gone to church and volunteered in the church, and our daughter has been raised in the church. But, you know, I was raised Catholic, and then on my own, I used to go to friends' churches, and they would go to Christian churches. And I just noticed a difference of how I felt leaving my Catholic church compared to how I would feel leaving a Christian church. And I just felt
less guilty.
Well, not even that. I
It's
just
just
felt
a shot
like
at
Catholic church. A lot of times it was like more just tradition, and like
Yeah.
you would go because that's what you did.
Sure.
Whereas like when I would go to my friends' Christian churches, I just felt like I was being spiritually fed, and
Yeah.
like I was actually hearing from God for the first time.
That's
And
powerful.
when I was like in 7th grade, I decided I wanted to get saved, and I remember my mom was really mad at me, and she was like, "You're supposed to be what your parents are," like. You know.
Oh, wow.
And
That's an interesting twist.
but I still would continue to go to church with my friends. And then all my mom's side of the family, all
Going
her
to cool church, Mom.
and yeah, all my mom's side of the family, like her sister and her nieces, they were all Christian, and they were always trying to get her to go to church. Sure enough, they finally got her to go to Calvary Chapel. I think it was Golden Springs or maybe Diamond Bar. It was, I want to say the pastor was Raul Reese, and my mom ended up getting saved at that church. And then
How cool is that?
what's crazy is now she's like one of the most devout Christians I know, and just always super involved. And, you know, I go to her for advice, and she's, you know, super involved in the women's ministry, special needs ministry. And it's just crazy how things have changed. And my dad has since gotten saved. But Hunter, you know, I made that decision when I was really young. He kind of found God, I think, later in his life, like early 20s, and, you know, has learned kind of over time that, you know, he should be the head of the household, and he should be leading prayer and should be leading his wife and his daughter. And so we've always prayed together, I'd say, throughout the course of our relationship, but it was always me being the one. I don't think
Sure.
I think he was just uncomfortable with it.
Sure.
I feel like people think that they need to know how to pray, like that there is a certain way to talk to God when there's not. It's really just having a conversation with him and, you know, approaching him with your your needs, your wants, your fears, your anxieties, all those things. So yeah, I'd say now it's something we do every day. We've been doing devotionals together every day. And I feel like since he's been doing, I feel like God has been blessing us more in our marriage, in our home, in our business.
Yeah.
We're just seeing the fruits of like, it's like, wow, when you do walk with God, he's going to just bless you abundantly. And so like, yeah, we've just seen the difference.
And I don't want to misquote the stat, but I want to say that the stats for couples who pray together, they very rarely, if ever, get divorced or split up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas
There's
I
that
think,
quote.
I think broad spectrum divorce rates are still like 50% or something.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you start centering in on couples who have a faith tradition and particularly that pray together, all of a sudden it drops from 50% to like 1% or less.
Yeah.
It's super low.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Like, I mean, I'm sure you guys can attest, marriage isn't easy, especially when you add in finances, kids, business. You add in all these things and it gets even harder. But I feel like when you make God the center, it does make everything else easier.
I would agree that being God-centered simplifies so many things. And yeah, I mean, marriage doesn't feel hard most days to me, but I wouldn't go out and say marriage isn't hard. Having a healthy, long marriage, like being a present, supportive parent, like running a successful business, like being in good physical shape, like anything worth fighting for, all that stuff's hard. None of that stuff's easy. That's why it's worth fighting for. That's why it's admired. That's why people follow people that are good at those things, experts in those domains.
Yep.
Because it's fascinating. You see somebody sell a company for $100 million, you think, how?
Yeah.
You see a before and after photo of someone who's lost a significant amount of weight, and you go, how?
Yeah.
There's someone who grew up in a house like I grew up in. I see other dads. And this is before I had kids. I would see other guys my age that were dads with these amazing relationships with their kids, and I would think, how? How do you learn to do that? What book did you read?
Yep.
What YouTube videos do I look at to figure that out? So I would love to talk about sobriety a little bit. So I'm a big 12-stepper. You're totally not a 12-stepper, which is fun because not like 12-steppers always look at non-12-steppers as like aliens.
Yeah.
But I see this, but it works in all directions.
Yeah.
This sort of confirmation bias. I see it in the church a lot too. Nicole and I became Christian just in the last couple of years. And so while I've been very God-centered for the last 20 plus years, it's only been specifically around modern scripture and the gospel in the last 2 years. But what I notice even about a lot of my church friends, like we talk about service work and it's like, I don't want to sound pretentious and be like, miss me with your guilt. I do way more of service than you do. Like, I don't want to say that to anybody.
Yeah. But you do.
I do a ton.
Yeah.
I do a ton, from running retreats to financial support in so many directions to spending. I mean, I'll sit with my dude that just got out of prison. Shit, I hold people down in prison. I mean, let's be real. My dudes that just get out of prison, I'll be meeting with them curbside, sitting on the curb in front of the halfway house in West Phoenix.
Yep.
While we work steps, while I introduce them to God.
Yeah, it's awesome.
In a way that's not going to scare them off. That's an interesting thing about. We can talk about that stuff later.
Yeah.
I want to know, what did your recovery journey look like? I also know that you lost a ton of weight. You had like a complete transformation, all sort of at the same time.
Yes.
And I would love for you to share that journey with us.
Sure. So I've been sober now 892 days.
That's a lot of days.
So almost 2.5 years. I'd say, so from alcohol, that was my addiction, but I come from a family of, like, my mom's side, family of alcoholics. A lot of her family members died of cirrhosis of the liver. And I'd say before I got sober, it was like I'd say right around COVID, I started just amping up the drinking. We were stuck at home all day. I was drinking more, drinking earlier. And then even after COVID, I was just constantly like, I would drink if we were celebrating something. I would drink if I was stressed out. I would drink if I was mad. I would drink if I was happy. It was always a reason to drink.
Yeah.
I was meeting with, my team, like, let's get mimosas. There was always a reason to. And then I'd get home and I'd keep drinking. And I've never been the kind of person that could like have a glass of wine with dinner because, it's going to bring out the flavor of my dinner or whatever. Or, I'm going to sip this because it tastes good. I think those people are crazy. Like, to drink alcohol for the taste, like,
Same.
that's crazy to me. Like, I was drinking because I wanted the buzz, and I wanted to just numb whatever it was, whatever past traumas that I just didn't want to face. And I noticed that the drinking was getting, heavier as I was finding out a lot more about like like I found out about my biological dad and my biological side of the family. And, he's actually, I found out that he like lives on the streets of Tempe, and met some of my family, and just found out like, like I felt like I was living a lie for so long. Like I was just finding out this portion of my life when I was like 35. So just you go through this identity crisis where you're like, everything that I thought I knew was not true. So dealt with a lot of that, and it was just making my drinking worse. And it was a strain on my marriage. It was a strain on my business. It was just, there was a couple instances I got sober for 3 months and then started drinking again. But this last time I felt like I just needed to make the change, not only for myself, but for my family. And I did do AA like online a couple times. I would go to the online meetings.
Do you have a date?
Do I have the date?
Yeah.
No, I
Do you
don't.
remember the date?
I don't remember the date,
Okay.
but it would have been super early on. And
No, I mean of your last drink.
oh yeah, October 22nd, 2022. So I got sober on the 23rd.
Congrats.
Thank you. And yeah, I would go to the meetings, and I thought they were great and fascinating. And I do love that the 12 steps is like, a lot of it is rooted in faith.
Sure.
I did like that, but I didn't feel like I needed to go to a meeting to not drink. Honestly, that was never my problem. I wouldn't wake up and be like, I need a drink, or like I wouldn't smell it or see it and be like, I need to drink. My problem is once I started drinking, I didn't stop drinking. I would want to go to the next place or come home and make more cocktails until I
Sure.
passed out or blacked out or whatever it would
Sure.
be.
And I have that.
Yeah.
I have that same issue.
So yeah, it's never been like wake up and need to do it, or, like I get triggered by something and need to do it necessarily. It was like once I started, I just was like, go, go, go.
And then with a firm resolution, you could, knowing that it would be detrimental, you could decide to just not pick up.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I honestly, like, once I'm the kind of person too, like, I mean, now my nightmares are like, I've fallen off the wagon,
Yeah.
and I drink, and like I have a disastrous night or something, and like that's a nightmare to me, and I wake up in cold sweat, and I'm just like, oh, thank God it was a dream. Like I didn't really, so those are my nightmares now. But like, I'm also the kind of person that is like, I've put in so much time, like even the thought of ruining that and having to reset, like, scares me. Like I just like, I would hate to throw all that time away, like to hit 892 days and then have to like to drink and like have to restart. Like, absolutely not. But another thing that helped me is right after I got sober. So I was drinking every day. I weighed 210 pounds at the time, which
How tall are you?
I'm 5'5.5". I just found out. So I was 210 pounds, which was heavier
I can't
than...
even imagine it, honestly.
Yeah, you could see it on my Instagram page. Which is heavier than my full-term pregnancy weight with Berlin. And yeah, I was just hiding it and like wearing really oversized clothes. And right when I stopped drinking, I started losing weight like almost immediately because my body was so used to having all that sugar and all that like every day that like the second I stopped, my body was almost like, what's happening? And then stopped drinking and then started walking / jogging like 3 to 4 miles a day, and then started doing some strength training again. When I was young, I've always been an athlete my whole life. And then I used to be like a personal trainer in the gym. And so like, I know what I need to do. It's just a matter of like actually doing it.
Sure.
So I started like strength training again. And yeah, every day I was walking or jogging 3 to 4 miles. And so within the first 2 weeks, I think I lost like 10 pounds, 10 to 12 pounds, like
Wow.
that first 2 weeks. And then one of my girlfriends, I hadn't seen her in like probably a year and didn't even recognize her. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, what's your secret? And she was like, oh, I'm doing the shots. And I was like, what is the shots? And she was like, it's called semaglutide. And like, yeah, this would have been almost 3 years ago. She was like, I'll give you the name of my nurse, blah, blah, blah. And it was like all the way in Chandler, Gilbert. And I was going to go because I was like, I want whatever she's taking. Didn't know anything about it, but knew I wanted to lose weight that bad.
The whole internet knows about GLP-1s now.
Yeah, now they do. But back then it was like, what is it? So I was talking to my girlfriend at the time who lived right by me up in North Peoria. And she was like, oh, yeah, my friend does those shots. And she was like, she's down the street. You don't have to go all the way to Chandler or Gilbert. Literally made an appointment that day and started semaglutide.
Also, one of the things that our medical director brought up recently that I think I've heard you mention is that there are some studies, at least some preliminary studies, that are showing a reduction in alcohol cravings from GLP-1s.
Yeah, so what's fascinating about the drug is that it curbs cravings, right? So a lot of people are on it because they want the appetite control and they want, that it slows down the digestion. I mean, I was, like I said, 210 pounds, probably pre-diabetic, was not in good shape at all. And I have a lot of diabetes runs in my family. So was like, well, this will be beneficial to me either way, whether I lose weight or not. But yeah, now more studies are coming out that not only does it curb food cravings, but it curbs cravings in general. So if you're an alcoholic that craves alcohol, it's going to reduce your risk of alcohol cravings. If you are a smoker, it's going to reduce your nicotine cravings. So they're actually, from what I've read, they're going to start doing like trials on like people who are drug addicts to see if it helps with their cravings.
I'm skeptical of it moving the needle on the crowd that I treat, but I think for people, I'm always fascinated when science comes up with something new that's beneficial. I think for the problem drinker, let's say, who doesn't quite fit in the alcoholic bucket, like despairing, tears in the eyes, doesn't want to drink and continues to drink, because that's my guy. Everybody who's like sort of in the gray area that like is drinking to an unhealthy degree, wants to stop and is maybe finding it troublesome but not impossible. I think a GLP-1 could be a great tool in the bag.
Yes, 1,000,000%. And so I was already sober prior to starting the shots. So it wasn't like I started the shots and, it suddenly made me not want to drink.
Sure.
But from my friends that I've talked to, they either don't want to anymore or as much, or like they get drunk way faster with the shot. And then their hangovers are worse, they've said, on the shot. So I don't know if that's like helping you not want to drink or what. But I'm assuming because it's slowing down your digestion.
Yeah, you're getting more of a sensitivity to everything.
To everything, yeah.
That's fascinating. So you lose a gazillion pounds.
I've lost 95 pounds.
Holy smokes, it's a whole person. So you lost an entire person's worth of weight. You sobered up, and as God would have it, as fate would have it, that's now been integrated into part of your business.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Hartman Health?
Healthy Haus.
Healthy Haus.
So yeah, we started our own business where I partner with a physician. Yep. Her name's Dr. Annalisa Carr. She's in Tennessee. She's licensed in all 50 states. So we wanted a way to bring GLP-1s to patients that was fast, convenient, and relatively affordable. A lot of people that I know that are living in California that were wanting to get on GLP-1 when I was wanting to get on it, or when I started it, we're paying like $1,200 a month.
Oh my gosh.
$1,500 a month. Something crazy, right? I wanted it to be attainable for like the everyday person.
Yeah.
So worked with this company to figure out how we can make it cost effective. Because I was like, there's no way I would ever be able to afford that. And then long term to be able, absolutely not. So I'd say between $300 to $500 is probably what most people are paying, depending on the state that they live in, and then the provider that they're getting it from. But a lot of people have to go in to see the doctor to get it. And I feel like that's something that stops a lot of people, because it's like, well, number one, it's not convenient, especially if you're going weekly to get injected. There's a
Mhm.
lot of people who don't want to do their own injections,
For sure.
or they just like they need to go in and have that FaceTime or whatnot. So a lot of people were going every week or every month to see the physician. And like, I'm sorry, if you have kids and you have a business or you're working or whatever, it's not always super convenient.
No.
So we found we have a way now to ship it directly to the patient on ice. The doctor, you fill out your intake form. They figure out the best type of GLP-1 for you. If
'Cause
you're a good
there's
candidate,
several.
yeah, there's several. There's different types. There's semaglutide, there's tirzepatide, there's Ozempic, there's Wegovy, there's all different kinds. Doctor figures out what's the best for you, and then if you are a good candidate, then they will ship the shots to you. And it's nice. Get it on your doorstep. It's super convenient. And then you do your own injections once a week, and then based on if you're losing, I have people that like they don't want to increase dose. They're doing just fine at their same dose and they're maintaining, or they're still losing weight at a low dose. Or if you're like, this is going great, but I want to see faster results, I continued to increase till I got to my goal weight and then titrated down. And now I'm on like a maintenance, and I'll stay on that. People are like, are you going to do it forever? And honestly, right now, I feel like I could stay on maintenance dose long term, because not only does it help with my appetite control and reduces my cravings, and it has helped with my inflammation, with my fibromyalgia, it gives me energy. I feel better when I'm taking it. So there's a lot of things that it's benefiting me.
Yeah, I lost 36 pounds
Mhm.
using a GLP-1 a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
and then have continued to take it periodically.
Mhm.
So, and it helps for all the same reasons. What I noticed early on, because I do blood work quarterly,
Mhm.
what I noticed, 3 months in was an improved blood panel overall.
Mhm.
And then 6 months in, it was even better.
Yeah.
And now my blood panel has stayed really cleaner than it's been for ages.
Mhm.
And I'm 47, so at my age, it's important to do blood work.
Yep.
I'm interested in fitness. I take a low dose of testosterone. I have for years now, and my longevity and my health is important to me. So it was for me was an unintended benefit of losing the weight and consuming less calories all around, which is why probably intermittent fasting, which was a big craze, it still is, depending on the different types of people out there. But I think pre GLP-1 intermittent fasting was really big for similar reasons.
Yep.
By consuming less, we are able to extend our lifespans, and it's GLP-1 is such a life hack for it. I know that some people are against it. A lot of people are interested in it for all the obvious health benefits. I'm one of those people that has more of an optimistic view of it. I recently watched a couple of guys. They're like these biohacker fitness nerd guys.
Okay.
They're in great shape. They're older than me. They're in their 50s, and they're taking a new GLP-1. It starts with an R. I don't know. I mispronounce it if I try to say it.
Okay.
But it starts with an R, is a newer one, and they call it microdosing. So they're microdosing this stuff. So they take a little tiny dose of it like every couple of days, and it has all the benefits for them. So they're not taking large doses. I take sort of an average size dose of GLP-1, the tirzepatide one.
Yep.
And I don't take it all the time. I take it periodically.
Yep.
So that's worked for me, but fascinating people's view on it who haven't really dug into the data on it, because it has so many benefits. When you look back into like biblical times, how long people lived. Now, one of the things that and the internet is probably going to correct me on this, whether hopefully they don't do it with all caps and exclamation points, but it's a free world. Do what you want. My working theory on people living to 100 and 120 regularly in much more ancient times, my guess would be the calorie intake, not eating processed foods. The breads and grains, they were making them from scratch with wheat that they grew. They were eating fish. They weren't eating 5,000 calorie a day diets.
Yeah.
They just weren't. They weren't eating processed cheese. They weren't eating any of the stuff that is so easily available, which is, even the people that are into GLP-1s, I think most people agree on that. Like, the health conscious world has sort of moved towards whole foods in the last decade.
Yep.
It's like, all right, yeah, fast food, plenty of people eat it, and it's obvious why. It tastes good, right?
Cheap, convenient.
It's cheap. It's convenient. It's easy to get to. They got drive-throughs. So it's not to take shots at them necessarily. They're providing a service. They're providing value for people that want that, which is most people.
Yep.
But those of us that are willing to spend the extra money, yeah, we would rather live longer, eat a little less, eat a little healthier, and being on, using GLP-1s as one more tool in the bag to get more mileage out of your life.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Oh my gosh. And it's how awesome and fascinating that you've been able to create an ancillary profit center, which is another cool thing. Not only do you make money from it and generate revenue for your family, you and Hunter, but you also are helping people. So I like the phrase doing well by doing good. And you and Hunter definitely do that.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Ooh. So you're a very public-facing person. You're a public figure. What adjustments did you have to make when your following started to grow? What has been positive, negative about becoming a much more public-facing person?
I mean, you're just constantly getting judged, good or bad.
Sure.
I think early on, I figured that I wasn't gonna just share the good, that I wanted to share the struggles as well. And I think that in doing so has made my followers want to follow me, not just because of my interior design. So it's not just, it's the main thing. It's Hartman Haus, and it's showcasing our projects and beautiful decor and beautiful designs. But at the core of it, it's also just me, So people know that I do talk about my sobriety and weight loss and family.
And your faith. And
my faith and all the things. And I'm not shy about sharing the bad sides of things. And I think that that's why my followers have stayed around, and why people come to my page too, is because I'm not scared to share the ugly side of things, maybe while others want to keep it more picture perfect. I like to share the struggles because I've found, the people that I follow on social media for the most part are people who I can relate to. And it's not people that only share the pretty side of things. I want to, I like to follow people who are going to share the struggles and the bad, because it makes me feel less alone. It makes me feel more human. And I like being able to have people reach out to me if they need help with something, whether that is they're struggling with alcohol or weight or faith, whatever it may be, or starting a business, all these things. So early on, I decided, I was going to share everything. And I think that, Hunter, there's been some times where he's like, I don't know if you should share that. I'm like, I'm going to do it anyways, and even my family is like, why are you talking about that on there? You don't I feel like, I come from a very traditional Hispanic family. And I think a lot of times, you don't talk about your struggles with addiction. You just don't.
Sure.
You'd go through it. And if you're going to get sober, that's fine. But you hide it. You don't, tell everybody that you have a problem. And you definitely don't share it on social media to a bunch of strangers, So I think to my family, it's still sometimes they're shocked at what I do open up about. But for me, it is all about helping people. I feel like God has given me the platform for a reason. And if it's to help people that are struggling with the same things that I've gone through, then so be it.
It's really amazing that you have that level of transparency and the willingness to share, knowing that it will be helpful. How do you deal with negativity online? Because I just earlier this year we released my series on the 12 steps, and I get a lot of support on it, but I got some people talking trash too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you do. And you tend to focus on those, you'll get tons of great positive comments, but you'll focus on the one negative, and then that'll just ruin your whole day or your week or whatever. And it's just about like developing a tough skin, I think. Like, no, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to agree with what you say.
Mm-mm.
The hardest part for me was like people would judge me on like being a mom, and like
Mm.
that was really hard, is getting judged on like how good of a parent you are, or and I would get comments, and then or a comment, and then I wouldn't say anything back, but I'd have all of these friends come to bat for me and be like,
Yeah.
actually, but it is, I think that the longer I've had my page, I just don't really like pay any mind to it. I think that, especially for you with what you're doing, I think that we're just sharing our testimony, sharing our story, and that's all we can do. You're always going to get people that are talking about you, whether it's positive or negative, but they're still talking about you,
100%. I was actually really excited. I got like 3 negative comments in like a day,
Mm-hmm.
different people.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Nicole and I was like, I got some negative comments today. She's like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pumped. It's super cool. It means we're starting to get a little bit of traction.
Yeah,
It means that
exactly.
people that don't know me,
Mm-hmm.
the algorithm is starting to show
Mm-hmm.
our content to people that are out of our sphere,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. That's what I want to do. I want to get it out there.
Yeah.
Nobody has to agree with me.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm. And the more, I mean, you'll just continue to get more and more. And I just feel like you develop your tough skin. Don't let that, like for me, I haven't let it deter me from sharing. I think that that a lot of times that's people's goal, is like, I'm going to tear her down or say something rude, and then now she's not going to want to come on here and say anything. And for me, I'm just like, well, I'm just going to keep sharing. So
Yeah, that's from a rational standpoint. That's the beauty of the internet. I'm free to say whatever I like,
mm-hmm.
And you're free to disagree with me.
Mm-hmm.
If Demi Lovato can say that smoking weed is sober, she shouldn't have to. She doesn't have to be mad. I'm not gonna say what she should or shouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have to be mad if people think that that's stupid.
Yeah.
And while my opinion doesn't even matter,
Mm-hmm.
like people that disagree on the internet, I imagine like how many people there are in the country, and how many people have access to a phone and the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remind myself, like, dude, the world is so big.
Yeah.
And when you're, what's the phrase? If you stand for, how's it go?
Stand for nothing.
If
fall
you,
for anything.
yeah, if you stand for
Yep.
nothing, you'll fall for anything. And it's hard to garner authentic support and to do anything authentic and real if you don't have a viewpoint, if you don't have a stance on a subject.
Yeah.
People don't follow people that don't have a signature to what they're doing.
Yep.
And I have my own take on business, on recovery,
Yep.
on marriage and parenthood, and those are my opinions. And I'm not telling anybody they have to agree with me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a free internet.
Yep.
Feel free to disagree if you want to.
Yep.
And I read something recently that we don't have haters. There are hateful people in the world, because it's not about you and it's not about me.
Yep.
Or anybody else. They're people that leave negative comments on the internet. They have they're fighting their own battles.
Oh yeah, 1,000,000%.
With themselves.
Yeah, and I remind myself that a lot of times too when I get, whether it's a negative comment or a DM or something. It's crazy to me because at the end of the day, they're messaging a perfect stranger. Like, you don't.
People talk shit in your DMs?
Yeah, I'll get people that will message me, and I mean, it's not like, it's not like they're cursing at me or personal attack, but they'll judge me on something,
Sure.
and it's crazy to me, one, that people are completely fine messaging a perfect stranger, because I look at all my DMs and I respond to all of them every day. I don't have this massive, I'm not like million followers and I don't have somebody that manages my social media. Everything that you see on my social media, that's me. I'm responding to the comments, to the DMs. I'm the one that's creating all of my posts, all of my reels, all of my editing, everything. That's me on both, Healthy House and Hartman House. So it's not like you're sending this and an assistant's going to see it. It's me that's going to see it. So it's crazy to me that people are completely fine messaging a perfect stranger. And I do remind myself a lot of the times, and I think that's where my faith comes into play, is like, okay, they've got something going on.
Yeah.
And it's not me at the end of the day.
This is where it makes the most sense to me. It's like if you subtract the internet,
Mm-hmm.
99% of people would never say something like that to a
Ever.
stranger.
Ever.
Out of fear of embarrassment, out of fear of aggression, out of fear of retaliation,
Mhm.
out of fear of just being wrong in public.
Mhm.
Like fear of confrontation.
Oh yeah, 1,000,000%. That's why a lot of the people you'll notice, I don't know if you've noticed this yet, but I would say a good vast majority of the people that will say something like really mean or hateful or something, they don't have a photo,
Oh yeah.
or it's like,
It's some sketchy number name.
yeah, random number name like they've created, just so
Yeah,
that
because
they
they want to pretend to
control.
be an NPC.
Yeah,
But you're not. You're a human being. And like if you wouldn't say that to me in the street, why would you say it to me online?
yeah. And I had to grow for sure. Like I think early on, like I mean, Hunter can attest to this, but like in the beginning, I would call people out that were like really mean, and I would like share what they share, like what they wrote, and I
Uh-huh.
would tag them, and then an army of
And then
people
just-
would go and
yeah.
attack that person, and then I was like, okay, I'm not supposed to
I've
be
seen
doing.
people do
I'm not
that.
supposed to be doing that. Hunter would be like, you probably shouldn't have done that. He's kind of my voice of reason,
Yeah.
and I would later on be like, yeah,
It's
I probably
retaliatory.
shouldn't. But like my pride like would be like, oh, I'm getting them back, or I'm saying something mean. Now, honestly, I've had my social media since 2015, and it just comes with the territory. If you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to have a following. You just have to accept that you're going to have people that aren't going to like you or what you do or what you say.
Yep.
So now I don't even respond. Whereas back then I couldn't hold back. I'd have to respond.
I have a friend who runs a business, and if he gets a negative comment on like the GMB profile, he will like argue with them in the comments. I'm like, don't do that.
Yeah, you can't.
That's not
Not a good look.
like you're right.
Yeah.
That person's wrong, but now you're just having a verbal knife fight on Google.
Yeah, you just got to be bigger and move forward.
Yeah, I think it's healthier. And not to even yet, gratify it, give it any space by responding. I don't respond to them.
Yeah. That's good for you though, because
Yeah, I don't have a need to respond. There's another post I saw recently, because I'm recently back on social media.
I was going to say, that's good for you. You're just starting out with social, and like for you to not
I took
go
a hiatus
there.
for about 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't do it professionally before. It was only my own personal stuff. And 2020 soured me so much. Just the political polarization, so much negativity. I'm old enough to have grown through Web 1.0 and 2.0. So I remember we talked about earlier, like when Facebook was like a friendly place, and like Instagram was a place for like really bespoke photography before Facebook bought it.
Yeah.
But eventually the like and share and comment buttons, and all of a sudden, in the 20s, like it can be a very vile place. It's like walking through a bad neighborhood in any major city, basically, when you just say things publicly online. Yeah. But getting back into it after being off a couple of years with sort of a fresh mindset that this isn't necessarily about like, my kids or what I ate for breakfast or like I'm at Disneyland today or something.
Yeah.
More of like we're creating content with a real intention to drive awareness towards things that I know people are interested in, which is building wealth, starting businesses, finding recovery, finding spiritual health.
Yep.
Being better parents, having healthy marriages. This is stuff that I'm interested in. This is stuff that most of the people that I know are interested in. People that are healthy, that are growing. And if there are parts of the internet that don't like that, that's fine.
Yep.
I don't have to engage in an argument. I'm not trying to sell them anything.
Exactly.
I follow a guy, he's actually a personal friend, a real estate guy who owns a big software company called Investor Lift. His name's Robert Wensley. He's got a pretty big following like yours. And what's it say in his bio? It says, I don't sell coaching in his bio.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because he's such like you or like me, he's providing like this really good actionable stuff, this really good content that you can really use as inspiration. And he must get that enough.
Oh yeah.
Where people are like,
can I hire you as a coach?
Or like stop trying to sell me shit. It's like, I'm not trying to sell you anything.
Yeah.
You're welcome for the free advice.
Exactly.
Take it or don't.
Yeah. Totally.
Or leave me really hateful comment if you like.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really healthy way that you deal with the negativity. Sort of in wrapping up, I'm curious what you would tell a young person, more specifically, because I work with men mostly.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell a young woman who is interested in, whether it's design or not, but interested in starting a business, has a project
Mm-hmm.
that they're interested in, passionate about? What would you tell a young woman who's thinking about going into business? What advice would you give?
The first thing I would say would be to pray about it a lot, not just for like a day or a week, but to really pray and see if this thing that you're wanting to pursue is something that God has lined up for you.
Mm.
Because if it's not, then things are just not going to go right, But if it is something that is meant for you and the timing is right and God has specifically placed it on your heart, then you're just going to get open doors. So I would say for sure, pray about it. If it's your passion, if you're passionate about it, then I think that that's ultimately what matters the most. I tell people all the time, like if for some reason God were to take everything away today, like, we didn't have our business anymore, I would still be rearranging things in my home and I would still be decorating and designing because at the core, I just love to do it, So whether that would be doing it for friends or whatever, I would still want to be pursuing design in some aspect of my life just because I really enjoy interiors and home decor and all those things. So I think that it's super important, like whatever business you're wanting to start, that you are truly passionate about it. Because if you're not, at the end of the day, it's just going to feel like work, And I feel lucky that I get to do this every single day for my job,
Steve Jobs has a good quote about that.
Yeah.
About if you don't love it, you're going to give up when your competitors are still pressing on, something like that.
1,000,000%. Because, for me, it's just, now it's become just second nature. It's like, I'm good at it. And I don't think I've never done another job where I'm like good at it and I'm enjoying every single part of it. Yeah, there's days where it's not easy necessarily,
Sure.
but I still love that I get to do it, So, yeah, I would say for sure, pray about it, make sure that you're passionate about it. And then I would say to talk to others in the field, whatever business you're wanting to do. Don't just trust, the internet and AI and whatever. I'd say like actually reach out to human beings who are doing it, doing the work, who are experts at it. Don't be afraid, to reach out for advice and reach out for help if you need it. I think that was something that like I said, I wasn't afraid to reach out to my friends who were in the business because you're going to get great expert advice from people who have, done the work. So yeah, I would say those are my things.
One more time for people that are going to look for you online, what's the best way to find you?
On social media, it's Instagram would be Hartman Haus. So Hartman_HAUS, or on our website, hartmanhaus.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking time with us today and sharing all your experience and wisdom with us.
Thanks, Estelle. This was fun.